So Bobbie was born with a gift to connect with interdimensional realms. She's received messages, telepathic communication, profound dreams, a lot of different topics, but one of the core messages you'll hear today is the potential of humanity. So please welcome to the stage Bobbie Richardson. That presentation, that performance, you were into it.
Brilliant.
Take us through that.
What,
the one on at the Broncos game.
Oh, the Broncos game? Yeah, I just got indication that I was going to win something, and I ended up, I was the last person that actually put my tape in, and the very next day I was live on TV at Channel 7, sung my song, and yeah, then won the big competition that Brisbane actually voted it by phoning in. And yeah, then all of a sudden I'm at the Broncos, I'm at Queen Street Mall, and it was really crazy for a few weeks there, but that's the thing that happens. But it's really strange, that's, you know, and doing all of that, this interdimensional work was always playing in the background of all of that. It's been an interesting life, a very interesting life.
So this started in your 20s. Tell everyone to start with the context of your experience, because many people often would think that an experiencer has perhaps gone into a spaceship or had definite contact, but that's not your experience, is it?
There was some ET connection. I did have an orange light that I saw outside my window, and then that night when I was sweating in bed because I didn't know what was happening, you know how you get that fear of, oh my God, there's a spaceship outside. I'm like, oh, I'm just not going to move for the rest of the night. And then my father came into the room, sat on my bed and calmed me down. Now, my dad would never, ever, ever do that. He never did. I found out the next day. It was not my father that came in. So there has been some ET communication with me since I was little, but the most profound thing is when I was very tiny, I saw things that others couldn't see. My mum had the same gift. She didn't like it when I did it, so she shut it down until I left home. And then when I left home, it's like the floodgates started opening, and I would get messages on, oh, you're not with the right guy, you should be doing this, and some of it was erratic, and some, I saw my baby, my first baby, at the age of 22. She's now 29. I saw her floating. They astral travel to you from their crib, if they're in a crib, until about the ages of between 6 weeks and 3 months. So I saw 2 of my children doing that, and my 3rd child, I was pregnant with her, and she came to me while I was pregnant. She was about 6 years old, when I woke up and saw her standing beside my bed giving me a gift, and she has given me many gifts, which I'll share later on. Yeah.
So when you say messages, how would you explain that process of receiving messages? Is it a telepathic voice that you're experiencing, or? Sometimes
it would be within my mind. I'd get a message of what you saw on Saturday was real. Like I saw a light flicker through a forest, and that light, I thought, oh, is that a fairy or some sort of elemental? And then I'd get a message, what you saw on Saturday is real. But then other times it would be a loud voice saying, after Steve Irwin died, right now, Steve, it's your turn. Or, you know, and I'd already had premonitions of his death before he died, and I did paintings of him in another reality, and yeah, so that's...
And one of the initial things you said was that you got messages on how to control the thoughts in your mind.
Yeah, they took me on a huge journey, because in Aperol, when we was in New Zealand, I was going to Aperol with a friend, with my fiance at the time, and I was in the negative state of mind like a lot of us can be. And I got told in the car, please just think positive. And I'm thinking, at that stage, I wasn't really listening to my mind, telepathic message. I didn't even know anything about anything then, really. That was early 20s. I just had visions of things and just accepted them. But that first subtle guidance or voice in my mind took me to the beach. When we went to the beach, it also told me to open the car door and start digging, because I wasn't really, it was saying think positive, but I'm like, well, what's that going to help? And it was saying, well, what does it matter? No one else can hear what's in your thoughts. So why don't you just have a go at it, have a crack at it? And when I was in the car, they said, open the same voice, subtle voice said, open the door. I stepped out and it's a dig. And I'm like, okay, well I feel like a bit of a twit here, but there was nobody else around. The car was parked just on a verge, like a sand bank. There was no car park or anything. It was just a long stretch of beach. So I started digging and I dug up a solid gold bracelet with a tattered heart in it, and it was worth a few $100. And then there was a silver earring and a little greenstone pendant, and put them on the side. And I went, I think I have to listen to this subtle voice in my mind if it's leading me to gold, you know? So yeah, I ended up starting to change my thought patterns. Now you cannot eradicate all of your negative thought patterns. This is the dimension we're in. But what it did was start clearing the space.
And you also instructed to purify the subconscious mind before you went to sleep.
Yes.
And of course the subconscious mind is 90% of who we are. It's really like the iceberg analogy fits. So how can you help other people? Because those thoughts are bubbling up from the subconscious into the conscious mind, like oxygen in an aquarium or something. How did you do that? How can you help the others? What can you share to help the others do the same thing?
So what they taught me, and I didn't know anything, I didn't even know what the word meditation meant, or I didn't even know it existed. But they did teach me to picture just a beautiful scenery, and always go to that same scenery before you go to sleep. So I would, every night I would focus my mind onto one scene. It was a beautiful grass verge with, you know, the river and the trees and stuff like that. And then I'd close my eyes and imagine myself there. Also they told me that my jaw was too tight, so I had to relax my jaw. And I'm a Virgo, so I'm like, but if I relax my jaw, I might dribble on the pillow. And then they're like, dribble on the frickin' pillow, you know. No, I'm not frickin', they didn't say frickin'. But anyway.
Really?
Just dribble. So yeah, I would wake up for months with big drools all over my pillow after that. And then they also, they taught me quite a lot about the mind and how to change my thought patterns. Yeah. And
then from this, an inner knowing started to develop. And we all have this inner knowing. Sometimes we don't listen to it. I know sometimes I haven't listened to my inner knowing and followed what I thought was the right thing, and it turned out to be not the best outcome. But what tips can you give for that, on how people can connect more with their inner knowing, this inner voice?
So it's like learning how to create a space within my mind. And because I didn't have so much negative thinking anymore, I started then realizing there was a gap, a stillness. And within that stillness, things, precognitive dreams would come, knowing that I had to help a certain person, I had to take this route instead of that route. But the most important thing is, where are you focusing? Are you focusing on what you don't want, or are you focusing on what you do want? So with that space, you can still end up with a lot of shit, because you're focusing on what you don't want. And this is what the governments and everyone's trying to get you to do, and be in fear and focus on what you don't want. Because it's like red flags all the time, advertisement, doing this, news, bad, wrong, you know, everything's war. Well, 11/11, you know, if we're on 11/11, to me I was told that was a great, huge manifesting date. 11/11, you know, is let's all focus on the war. And this is how they keep us in these programs, like the 11th of November, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because a bit of Australian trivia that's just come to me. 11th of November, 3 great things happened in Australian history. And the first one was the execution of Ned Kelly, who in many ways was celebrated as a rebel. That's in the Australian egregore, the collective consciousness in a way. The second one is, of course, Remembrance Day. And the third one was the dismissal of the Whitlam government by the Governor-General. So it's an interesting connection, and it's also when the sun is in Scorpio.
So I teach my children on the 11th of the 11th to focus on creating what world they want, rather than looking into the past. So we're present, we're more present, and we're just seeing, you know, a futuristic world that we really love, yeah.
And a lot of the connections that began at the beginning for you was in astral realm, and you began to be contacted by various spirits. So how did this unfold, and what was the experience with that?
So there was a lot of experiences with different. It was really confusing for a while until about my 30s. I would be waking up, and I've talked to other people who have these experiences as well, with things in your room. You know, I've had the elemental connection, I've had the UFOs come into my room, I've had dead people, it's like Alice in Dubai, I had phone calls from the dead, I've had it a lot. And then I just went, you know what? I'm not getting this, it's too much. I went and saw a psychic and they said I'm like a lighthouse with a light, and it just, everything's coming to me. So I decided to take the reins, and I really advised this. I said what I wanted, and so I said I wanted that. Then I had to think of a question, and I knew at that time, I wasn't too sure, I was a bit iffy about the school history, what they were teaching us about humans. So I went, well, maybe I could find out if that was true, fine. If it was a boring story, fine. But if it was a crazy story, I'll deal with it. But I just kept this empty cup and went, I want to know the true history. That took 10 years to be given to me. I didn't realise how long and big and huge that story was going to be. And during that, I also asked for the potential of humankind. That was something more from my heart, because I realised when I started realising the true history that we were in a program, a natural program, and then we've had another program put on top of us to keep us in this limited consciousness so that we can be controlled. So then I'm like, well, what's our potential if we're controlled? And that's another story, yeah.
Well, that's one of the big things that you are passionate about that came through those messages, is the potential for humanity. And then you, in this process, start to become more, in a way, assertive. Instead of being receptive to these messages, you actually start to ask your own questions because it sparked the curiosity in you. So what can you tell us about that? What questions did you start asking?
Those are the 2 questions that I asked.
Yeah.
And I also asked to meet someone of high integrity on this world, and I was led within 2 months to a Cherokee elder who picked me out of a crowd, and then she changed some neuron paths, and I had that peaceful thinking state of stillness in my mind that I had got over the years. It was very, very beautiful for about 2 weeks. So I went, okay, this lady's got my attention, went back, and she picked me out of another crowd and said, I'll be working with you. She gave me a name, Alanawa Nanahi. Alanawa is a turtle where I carry the code on the back of the turtle to lead people through to the new earth or returning home. Nanahi is fairy, but I'm supposed to be creator of that realm, part of creator of that realm. She held my hand and talked to me for over an hour telepathically and blew my mind. Like it was full on. The connection that you have to have, the the love connection that we had to have confused me. I'm like, I'm not in love with this old lady. That's weird. Because I actually went home and started fretting, I'm not in love with this lady. This is like my left brain's going, what? You know? And but there was a beautiful connection that we had through that. Yeah.
And then with the beings themselves, you start to learn about the true history of humanity. And can you tell us about that, and also the order of the beings that came to you, because for the audience, because this is when it really starts to, Bobbie's story really starts to unfold. You can see the magnitude of what was going on with it.
It was huge, and to try to compress 10 years of what I was told into this 2 paragraphs.
Greatest hits package.
I'll try to do it as fast as I can, please try to keep up. Okay, so...
Talking to me or everybody?
No. So starting with the creator, they told me that there's all these multiple dimensions, not just the planets out there. So in our universe, we had the Lyrians and the Vegans were creators. They created. But they become weak in the human form, and they got to the pinnacle of their evolution. In another dimension were the reptilians, and they were consumers. Consume. And consume knowledge too, you know. But both stories were relevant to the creator, who we all are. We are them and they are us. So they're just gaining information from these very varied aspects. And what happened was that the creator decided to let the porthole come open so that the reptilians could come into this reality. Then they went out to the Lyrians and went, hey, can I have something that you've got? You've got awesome, beautiful stuff there. The Lyrians went, we don't know you. So then the reptilians went, oh, power, I'm going to shoot down.
And you said the reptilians smell.
A few of them, they did, they stare.
And that's something
when one of them approached me in a form, yeah, it was very smelly, and that was a negative being though. Mm. But I knew what to do. I knew I'd be safe when it tried to attack me. I had this centre that happened, and it was like all my chakras went to one ball between my sacral and my heart and blew out a light, and I saw this happening. I could feel, smell, see this entity approaching me, but my light shone so bright, I lifted my frequency up, it couldn't come with me. Back to the story of the evolution though. So here we got two different beings that are now going to start helping each other evolve more. Now the reptilians, some of them went and found a planet that was revolving around our sun on a long orbit with the Anunnaki, and they joined the Anunnaki. So I had the reptilians, then the Palladians, which I'll bring them in soon, then the Anunnaki, and then the Lyrians visit me over the space of 10 years. So where am I at to? So
the potential of humanity and the history of humanity.
No, so we're up to the actual, oh sorry, I just lost my train of thought then.
Reptilians were allowed to come through the portal.
That's right, reptilians were allowed to come through the portal. Thank you. It's just such a long, huge story. So then they found this planet, which I'll call Nibiru, but I'm not sure, it's a planet X that goes around our orbit. When they tripped over Earth, they landed on Earth, they maybe infused their DNA of some kind. We do have, our first brain is reptilian. Then they went on their long orbit, and the Lyrians now scattered because their planets have been blown up by the reptilians. They're trying to infuse their DNA with a stronger, something to be able to cope with this new being that's coming to destroy them. So they found Earth and went, oh, there's a hybrid, there's Neanderthal, something like that they can infuse their DNA to. So they did that. Now we're coming into Atlantis. When they left, the Lyrians left the Palladians in charge. So the Palladians just took care of us, so like our distant cousins. They ended up helping us connect with multi-dimensional spaces, but we were like mini gods. We had both creator and destroyer within us, but we were like babies with a match. So we started destroying some of the original program that we are, who we are, the creators are. So we got locked down. So the creators put a vibe through the sun, and the sun changed the frequency of this solar system so that it can be, well, at least Earth can be locked down. And in reflection to that, the reptilians and the Anunnaki were coming back. They had a war with the Palladians. The Palladians lost because the energy is in a lower vibration. It's meant to go down to put us into lockdown. The reptilians have been in charge of us ever since. The Palladians, before they left, allowed us to breed because the Lyrians didn't want us to breed to begin with because they were worried about whether we were too powerful. But then, yeah, so there's a lot to that story. It's absolutely huge, what I was told.
What do you see as the role going forward with, as you understand it, with the different beings? Particularly, many people talk about the Pleiadians coming to support the awakening of humanity. Is that how you see things happening, or is there other?
I think every race has good, bad, and good. Every race. There's good reptilians, there's bad reptilians. The ones that are in charge of us are meant to be capitalists and locked down. They're just grasping to a thread of trying to keep their power going, but they will eventually fall, and especially when we start realising our potential, because our potential is absolutely magnificent. And that's why we're having such a hard time with the shifts that are happening and facing our own truths, our own blocks. Don't be too hard on yourself. We've come from this small to we're going to this big. You know, we are the evolution of everything too. You know, I'm not saying that there's not other planets that have other beings on it that are that too, but I'm only talking from a human perspective. We have the ability to destroy and create. We're a miracle that can be, you know, when we're awake, we can do amazing things.
And what advice would you give to people going through the awakening process to discover that state of deep empowerment?
So that's going into the potential of humanity. And most important advice is to find if we can find presence and stillness within ourselves. Because we have two hemispheres of our brain, and one of them has been locked down. It's like a beetle that's had an injection put into one of the wings and put to sleep. So what happens is our souls keep going round and round and round in circles. We're born, we survive, we die. We're born, we survive, we die, and that's where we're at. So with the two hemispheres, once we find that stillness and allow our imaginative, intuitive side to have a say in how we're going to imagine our beautiful world, then the logical side can then put it into practice and bring it into reality. We've got to work together within ourselves. Everything's reflected. We are a program that's reflected. So the wars will start fading once we start within our own minds getting that in balance again. That will then open the pineal gland, and I was taught that the pineal gland has these tiny little micro crystals in them, and those crystals will vibrate. Now, has anyone seen the plates that you throw sand on? It's called somatics, and it vibrates, and they heighten the different frequency up, the sound frequency, and these beautiful sacred geometry patterns will come. So when you hear a Tibetan chant, then he's like vibrating, they're vibrating at a certain level, opening up what they call gateways, and they draw those mandala patterns in the sand. They're seeing the geometrical pattern. If you take ayahuasca, people see geometrical patterns. So and also the crop circles, some of them are actually sent to us to help us awaken us to these different frequencies, and even telepathically connect with other beings and stuff like that. So that once we've got the two beautiful brains that are in sync with each other, we can then access that pineal gland. Cannot access that pineal gland until we've got that happening. You'll be shut down. And the ones that are doing the hydrogen collider thing that the government's doing, all they're going to do is step into another reality that's similar to this one, but it's still going to have the same crap. It's still going to have the same crap if they do go interdimensionally, because they're not stepping in for a higher purpose of themselves, and they haven't done the work, the inner journey of themselves. So the most important thing I was told is to do this inner work. Yeah, there's several little exercises they gave me.
So in regard to the shift, what were the significant events that have created the awakening? I mean, we can perceive now that there is a momentum behind it. The time frames we're not sure about, but we're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it, and it is mainly because enough of us souls have gone, I'm over this. I'm over being alive, surviving and dying. Being alive, surviving and dying. We're screaming, literally every one of us is screaming out to the Creator, please get us some help. And what happens is, because of that being said, the Creator I'll actually explain what the Creator told me, just coming into what the Creator is, because they only taught me from a very limited consciousness. Imagine a light body, and then they showed me a black blanket going over a leg of that light body, and they pinpricked all these little holes in it, and they said, that's your sons. So we are you and you are us. But those little pinpricks are the portholes that they can change the frequency of. So when we're screaming out to them, we need help. They say, are they ready? Yes, okay, they're ready. Okay, we'll put through another vibration through the porthole of the sun, and it'll send. And you'll notice that it's not just Earth going through these changes. All of the planets are going through these changes in our solar system. So that's what I was taught, that they can change whatever they want via the suns of the solar system. But we are them and they are us. It's really cool. So how do you see the events unfolding going into the next decade and beyond?
The
shift.
Yeah. Well, the creators will, we're in a program, we're in a lockdown program, so the more that we start clearing our thought patterns and become more presently aware, the more we can access the pineal gland, the more we'll start accessing other dimensional beings, and all of a sudden on the news it will go, oh, they found life on Venus. You know, it'll be like this progressional stage of people going, as we go along. That's how I see it. Technology and everything in it is a reflection of what we can handle. But everything in technology we can do within ourselves. There's nothing that you can't imagine that you can't do within yourself.
Okay. Yeah. The pineal gland is so significant, and for those of you who aren't aware, which I'm sure you do know, that the fluoridation in the water is actually calcifying and fluoridated. I know you can't avoid it completely with showering and when you're out and about and so on in restaurants, but be aware that it's something to avoid as best as you can. Even through reverse osmosis, which is not great for the water, but if you have to think of the two, it's probably better than the fluoridation.
Another thing is if you put your tongue on the top of your mouth and you just vibrate that at a very nice frequency, that's really good for you. Resonate, focus on your pineal gland. It can shake it and clear it a little. Yeah, there's a few little techniques you can do.
And the practice of presence is one of them.
Yeah.
And how do you regard that in the perception of supporting your awakening?
So not thinking of your past. Try to completely be present in every aspect that you are with them. Don't be like over there with everything else. Oh, maybe there's something more exciting going over there. That's not present at all. Present is being completely here with you guys in this seat. And like another technique they gave to me to go to sleep is just feel the blankets and feel the pillow and really feel how beautiful and comfortable that is. You'll fall asleep like that. I taught that to my guy, the man that was doing the tax for me. I went back a year later, he's like, oh, thank you so much, and all those numbers have gone. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the state of the mind, the monkey mind, is basically to project into the future or reflect on the past.
And the program that's put on us constantly keeps us in that. Oh my God, that happened over there. Oh, we've got to, and then, oh my God, this is going to be projected on. We're doomed. We're never going to get anywhere. It's going to be shit. You know, this is what happens. This is the program. Oh my God, it's not shit. It is. It's amazing. And the places that I've been to, like I've stepped into alternate realities that are our potential Earth, and the stillness you have is incredible. It's so blissful, and I've heard a few people talk about this when they're up here. But it is an absolutely blissful feeling, and I want to give you something that you can go to. So I've done a lot of artwork, so that, but also if we have a focus, if we know where we're going, then we've got somewhere to go to. If we don't have a focus of where we're going, we don't know. So when I stepped into this reality, everything was still. I was very high. You can live where you like. You can live on a mountain if you want, because the people that were coming, they like communicated to me telepathically, because it's just so clear. It's like, oh yeah, you're coming. Oh yeah, cool. I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Blah blah blah. And then next minute, teleporting. They teleport to my front door, and we could go out on the veranda and manifest a cup of tea. Like you can have exactly what you want here, but you can have it very quickly. And the secret and learning how to manifest is slowly bringing us to, we're starting to realise that we can actually bring things to our reality. So you can do a few exercises as well to get that happening.
So a lot of people are interested in that concept of manifestation, creating your own reality, and we're all aware of it, but let's face it, we're not exactly creating the reality we'd like to most of the time in some different aspects of life.
That's put over us. So I love to play around with it. When I realised I could still my mind for a few moments, I set myself, when I was camping on this big giant field of grass, and just went, okay, well, I'll put this to practice. If I could still my mind and manifest what I wanted, that means...
So how do you do that? Do you visualise it, or do you conceptualise it, or is it an affirmation?
There's just a being. You just are, and there's nothing else but you. No, nothing else going on my mind. I'll tell you a few exercises to get there. The first thing they told me to do is to just take one object. I took a fluffy duck, and then I changed it to a sunflower.
That's not a cocktail, is it?
Fluffy duck, no, it was a little duckling. It was fucking cute. Sometimes that duck got run over in my mind, but anyway. But I took a little fluffy duck, a cute little one, and then every single time I had a negative thought that was just starting to manifest into my life, I bring it back to the fluffy duck. Or now I do sunflower because it's got the Mandela matrix pattern within it. And that's your default. It's like rebooting your computer. Default, don't like where I'm going, let's just bring it to one subject back, you know, to that sunflower. Then I was taught, once I got the hang of that, to change the story. So negative story, okay, I can go back to the default. Well, why don't I just use that and change the story? Okay, I'd rather see it this way. And so I started changing the story. And then I got to change, after I started changing the story, then they taught me, okay, now let's just bring it back to complete stillness. So when I was on this field of camping, on this giant field, I went to stillness, and then I just went, you know what, if I'm creating this reality, I'm going to pick this blade of grass and it's going to be a 4-leaf clover. So I closed my eyes, did not look, I just closed my eyes, picked a blade of grass, and it was a freaking 4-leaf clover. And I'm like, no, that means I have to, you know, take responsibility for every single thought I have. Every single thought. You know, this is, with all of this matrix and horror story that's been projected to us, so I stopped watching TV for 9 years. Yeah, I didn't want to do that program anymore.
This thing that so many people have today, problems with the mind, the thoughts they're having, well, new studies and research in psychology show that when, as you use the word default, when people are just ruminating endlessly and just thinking or trying to think their way out of a problem, generally in that process, the inner critic is actually being engaged and activated. And the inner critic is one of the greatest forms of self-sabotage that we have. And this kind of continual answering to a superior form of our own consciousness that can never be satisfied or appeased in a certain way. And that's why, to negate that, the practice of presence is simply returning to the here and now.
Just let it be.
In some ways, transcending the mind. And many people are trying to use the mind to solve the problems with the mind, but it's not actually that effective. Because what we really need to change ultimately, particularly in the process we're going through now of awakening, is our relationship to the thoughts, our relationship to our challenges. And there's no point ruminating over a challenge that we perhaps simply have to just live with if we cannot adapt or change something. And that's where the growth is, to be resilient and to be enduring and to have that inner strength and also the presence to keep navigating the shift with this ease and grace.
It's like a walking meditation. I don't meditate very much because I constantly am aware of my thoughts, meditating within my mind, doing dishes, am I present with the dishes? It doesn't matter what you're doing, just be present. And it's amazing how you can, even physically, your body can handle a lot more when you're present. I can do a lot of exercise, and then I'm like, I've just got to be present with this exercise or this hard job that I have to do. And then I come home, I might have a sore back. The next day I'm like, well, I'm going to be present. Just because I had a sore back then doesn't mean I'm going to have one now. And it disappears really quickly. Rather than, oh my God, I've got a sore back, I'm going to have a sore back for the rest of my life. Well, what are you doing? You're just creating more of that sore back for the rest of your life. So it's constantly be present. Wake up in the morning, and it's a new day, it's a new fresh day. Anything can happen. Anything can happen because your mind can change anything. Your inner being can change anything. Yeah.
So Bobbie, the new earth, there's a lot of talk about the new earth. How do you see that from your perspective? What's your understanding of the new paradigm of the new earth?
So it's a shift in frequency that we will go through, and we are going through now. So all the blocks and the fears and all that will slowly start dripping away. We'll start to realise what we're facing up with is our own reflection in everybody that we meet. So we have to constantly be aware of, if you're angry with somebody, there's something in them that you're angry with in yourself. And then what happens when that starts, we start becoming more still and present, then the vibe, everything will shift around us. You'll start seeing on TV, oh, the war's now stopped, or it'll be a reflection of what's going on within our minds. The more of us that are doing this, the more we'll start seeing a reflection in our minds with the TVs and our news and newsreels and stuff. And like I said before, all of a sudden they'll start like, oh, we found life on Venus, or we found, there is ETs that are coming our way. We use 10% of our brain, 10% of our DNA. We see 10% of the skies, guys. Like, it's all reflection. So once we start activating our minds, we're not so, we're actually open more, then all of a sudden we'll start seeing more out there. Well, that's the reflection.
Would you agree that in the current paradigm, many people are trying to change their internal reality by changing their external reality? Whereas it's obvious that once we change our internal reality, the reflection or the mirror changes by definition. And yet many of us are trying to do completely the opposite
way.
Continually.
It doesn't work the opposite way.
So
you have to do the inner journey. That is one of the keys. So if we don't do that, then we're not going to get anywhere. We'll just keep going around in circles like we have that little beetle with the sleeping wing. We'll just keep going around in circles.
Yeah, and that's a challenge for all of us, and the mirror is being held up clearer, closer, more rapidly as we have this energetic alignment that we're needing to get through to get into these higher frequencies.
And ask the questions. Like, I don't know everything. And my daughter told me at the age of 3, I know where we go when we die. It's a place called Anyon. It's where everything is everything. But we live in our minds now, Mummy, but we also live in Anyon as well. And she said, you can look it up, but you have to thank me for this one. Because I was looking for our potential. So I looked it up, and Anyon is a particle quantum physics that they were making into quantum computers. It resides in 2 dimensions, fermion or boson, which is like light or material. And yeah, she hit the nail on the head with that. I believe that with our pineal gland we have serotonin, and it changes to melatonin, it yields with a beta-carotic acid to DMT, which is what ayahuasca does. That's when it flips the tiny little crystals that I was talking about before into an Anyon experience. From materials light, we can then experience these other frequencies. So they've given me that information as well. Yeah, it's a lot.
She's got a lot to share, obviously, and on that note, I'll tell you about Bobbie's books. She's written children's books, and they are...
Like an imagination and the intuitive side, sorry.
And to connect with the right brain, and that's really what Bobbie has illustrated there. Her books are Imagine Holding Hands, and Jonah and Kitty, The Timekeeper's Void, and I believe you're in the process of writing a 3rd book called...
UFO Girl.
That's right. So thank you for sharing that. Chat to Bobbie more in the pre-function area. When we were putting together this presentation, there's a whole lot of information there to unpack, particularly with the contact with some of these beings and the messages that she's received. But thank you for being part of the Paradigm Shift Summit and sharing your message. Thank you so much.